AI researcher for the last somewhat 20 years, right? So I began my work in AI as a undergraduate, final year undergraduate student, and we are from Fiji. We are Fiji Indians. Put your hand up if you know where Fiji is. No, it's the South Pacific. The South Pacific is an island nation, and our ancestors moved to India about 100 years ago, right? And there we make around 40% of the population. So for the last 10 years, I have moved to Sydney, Australia. So I run a research group called the Conventional Artificial Intelligence Research Group, and it's a pleasure and an honor to present this here. So in this talk, I will talk about consciousness studies, machine consciousness, view of Hinduism and Hindu philosophy, and what are some of the parallels that can motivate the development of AI in the future, taking into account the definition of consciousness and Hindu philosophy. So the question is, does the simulation of intelligence apply the presence of consciousness? So we know that our computers are intelligent, our smartphones are intelligent, laptops are intelligent, but do they have consciousness? That's what it's trying to say. So with AI, we have a wide range of applications in machine perceptron, computer vision. You see that we have self-driving cars, right? We have drones that fly by themselves. They can avoid obstacles. There are a lot of ongoing technologies coming out, including the large language models, AI, ChatGPT, and so on. And it has created a breakthrough in, and also concerns. There are concerns about AI in the education system because students are now using it to write essays and so on. So, but the question is that AI, the different components of the AI, they behave like that they are intelligent, but are they conscious? And what is conscious, or what is be conscious? What is consciousness? These are the words that are usually interchangeably used, but they are not really the same. So there are definitions about broad definitions about consciousness. It's a state of awareness, right? Sentient subjectivity, sensory perception, wakefulness. All these things combined together, you can say consciousness has all these attributes, right? So, and that state of awareness is connected to sentience, metacognition, ego, wakefulness, sense perception, and so on. Wakefulness is important and interesting because when people say you are awake, so when they say that we are awake, it is just that our eyes are open, but and our mind is thinking, and we think that okay, this is the wakeful state. But when we are sleeping, our eyes are closed, we are dreaming, our mind is still having a state where at times, even in our dreams, we do not know that we are sleeping. We think that it is actually a real event, right? When we wake up, then we are like, okay, that was just a dream, right? But during the dream, you may be running from something, or you may be being chased, or you may have a blissful experience, you're flying like a bird, and so on, right? Some interesting dreams, right? We have. And they do have certain meanings, but the question is all that what does it have to do with the definition of consciousness? And are you conscious when you are in a dream state? That's a question to ask ourselves. Yes, we are conscious because we cannot even discriminate some dreams that they are real or we are dreaming. So we see that the state of awareness, the realm of consciousness is central, something within us. They say that, you find peace within yourself, right? They say when you meditate, you need to go within yourself to get state of non-thinking state. So The problem in definition of consciousness comes when there is a problem explaining consciousness, right? So there is the explanatory gap. So we can describe physical processes in detail, but it is not known how or why they give rise to subjective qualitative experiences. That's very deep in statement. So, for example, like the flavor of food, when you give the same food to two different people, they are going to experience the taste, and that taste will be experienced differently by different people. Sometimes you say that, oh, I really like the food, this is really delicious. But somebody else, your friend, will say, oh, it was not so good, right? But there's something within us that is experiencing the world, I would say, right? So that's something within us experiencing the world outside is hard to define in the academic community. In the study of consciousness, that's known as the hard problem of consciousness. So the hard problem of consciousness is that there's something that cannot be defined, that witness within ourselves. So how red is the redness of a sunset, the flavor of food, and what is it like to experience? You growing up would think about that there was a you that was experiencing the world 10 years ago as a kid, right? And now you, with time, basically, as a kid, you have grown up into an adult. So things have all changed. Your preferences have changed, your clothes have changed, right? But there's something that is the same, right? And that's something in Sanskrit, in Hindu philosophy perspective, we call it the Atman. Right? The Atman remains the same, it's witnessing the world. So the hard problem of consciousness is that it's hard to define what the Atman is, or in the Western sense, it's called qualia. It is hard to define it, and the unresolved issue is that we only can know that we have consciousness, but we cannot tell if somebody else has consciousness or not, right? So only we can experience the world with our consciousness, with our awareness, but we do not know the awareness of others. So that's it relates to strong artificial intelligence and weak artificial intelligence. So machines with genuine sentience, more like we come to a state the next 50 or 100 years where robots will look so much like humans, behave so much like humans, and or even earlier. And the question will be: are they conscious? Do they have consciousness? And what? Because when we will have humans, robots working around us, be part of our household, somebody may have lost a son or a daughter, and they would be depressed. Maybe there would be a program where they will introduce a child to their families, and that would be a robotic child. We have this whole problem of population decline, where people are getting married late and do not have kids. They are lonely. So robots are going to fill that vacuum, and people are going to fall in love with the robots. They will be friends with robots. They will be upset with robots as well, right? And then what is it that makes humans more special than robots? Those questions will come in the future. And a weak AI is essentially like you're having a conversation with ChatGPT. ChatGPT is, for example, writing an essay for you, or you are having some sort of using AI to create an image, improve an image. AI used for robotics work, drones flying. Those are all examples of weak AI. So although they may seem as phenomenal, without this whole discussion about consciousness, sentience, they are still seen as weak AI. So they are foundational models of machine consciousness. So consciousness study is a emerging field in academia. It's a multidisciplinary field. In biology, cognitive science, neuroscience, philosophy, computer science. So this is in between all of those fields. But then, because consciousness studies is mostly towards the side of neuroscience and philosophy, the computer scientists are like, okay, no, we want to look at consciousness from the perspective of the computer and the software and the hardware. Does it have consciousness? So that aspect of academic inquiry is known as machine consciousness, and it's not very old. That's whereas consciousness studies goes as old as Hinduism is, right? Because the first definitions of consciousness is in the very text, the Upanishads, and so on. So, whereas the consciousness that is a study in academic Western universities is more new. But machine consciousness came about with the development of computers, and in machine consciousness, the field is mostly looking at how can we define consciousness? How can we measure consciousness? If there's a complicated software that is coming up, can we measure how much consciousness it has, right? And that is one such is the integrated information integrated theory, IIT, and there's global workplace theory. It's a global broadcast of consciousness across a cognitive architecture. So these theories are more aligned to measure humanoid robots, for example. Like you have humanoid robots doing tasks, and because with the desktop computers we do have the operating system, but the desktop computer does not have sensory aspects of input with which taking the input, it does that level of control compared to humanoid robots. For humanoid robots, like say to a humanoid robot, go and walk from point A to point B, but then from here to there, then there's these two chairs in there, right, here to the ball. So the robot will work, and according to the camera, there's some feedback coming to the robot, and the senses, right? So that kind of replicates more of how we humans do work, and we avoid obstacles, right? And the other thing is we do balance ourselves, right? There's a lot of things we do, it is completely, we are not really aware of, right? So consciousness is not just awareness. Like when we eat food, are we aware that it is being digested? No, right? We forget about it. We go into other tasks, we are going on a trip, we are studying. Food is getting digested by itself. So there's a lot of background processes in our brain happening and taking control of our body, right? We're in a stressful situation, right? Then because it's a stressful situation, our heart starts beating faster, right? Right. But we may not be conscious about it, right? But and then there are brain processes that is trying to regulate the breathing, the process as well. So if we are going to develop machines with consciousness, we need to, all these will be different software processes, and it's all very complicated. So such things such as global work space theory, integrated information theory, and others, they give a paradigm to measure the state of consciousness in simulated systems. So AI and machine consciousness, what is the progress? So as I said earlier, machine learning. Have you heard about machine learning, right? AI, machine learning. You guys are going to probably doing courses about machine learning, right? Developing deep learning models, some of you. So these are all aspects. If we think of a humanoid robot, it will have speech, vision, and internal architecture is some sort of multimodal models, language models, foundation models, and several models to process the data that the robot is getting, right? So all these fields in AI coming up, when you think of a humanoid robot, they will be basically combining all of that to make the humanoid robot possible. So the example, some other works such as, I think this was about 10 years ago, AlphaGo was, this is developed by Google, perhaps they developed, and there was IBM Watson as well. It was conversational AI where you try to ask questions to AI. This is 10 years ago, and the AI gives you some answers. So there was this game of, there was a something, what you can imagine, you are all famous, you all know about Kaun Banega Crorepati, for example, the show, the most famous show in India. So Watson answered questions something like that. So now we have, if you give ChatGPT questions from Kaun Banega Crorepati, you would be answering that quite efficiently, most of those questions. So we've come to a state where the AI is quite intelligent that it behaves like it's conscious. So now the new technology that we have now is LLM, large language models, right? And that's something, it comes from the area of natural language processing. And we are, if you think about consciousness, so think about, ask people why is the LLM giving this answer? You ask your ChatGPT or AI a question, then why it comes to that answer? It's something people, there are some analysis about it, but it's not like exactly it can tell why it came to that answer. And what I'm trying to say that deep learning, generally, deep learning and machine learning, a lot of deep learning is basically neural networks, large neural networks inspired by the brain. And it is known, they are known as non-explainable AI. When they come to a decision, they make a decision, a prediction. It is not clear how the decision, because there's just strange weights, the weights you cannot know what they actually represent. And large language models is a phenomenal, massive deep learning model generally. And what it does, it has been trained with the Wikipedia, the Focus Corpus, or a lot of journal articles, news sources, and so on. So it has the whole good portion of the digital literature, right? So if things are not digitalized, large language model does not know. So it is mostly seen as a parrot trying to answer. That's what a large language model is. A large language model, you can think of yourself when you go to the exam, before the exam, if the exam is not open book, you just have to remember so much, right? I remember those days 20 years ago. You guys, and you spend the whole night, and the next day you are more behaving like a parrot. A smart parrot. So large language model is a smart parrot. What it is. And it is taking information from sources, combining it, putting it together, and giving it to us. So is it conscious? It's a large level language model conscious. So there are some studies about it, and integrated information theory and global workforce theory, they can be used to study the consciousness of large language models. but it is not agreed that it has consciousness. And the formal statement is that intelligence is not equal to sentience, right? Now, what do we mean by sentience? Sentience is, you could see sentience as a measure or an attribute of intelligence, right? So they say level of sentience, right? You may have heard this from Hindu classes about vegetarianism versus non-vegetarianism. So level of sentience. So they say plants have lower level of sentience. Worms have lower level of sentience. Because worms have one or two sense organs. Humans or mammals have higher level of sentience because we have 5 senses. Some see the brain as a sense organ from a more Hindu philosophical perspective. So that's where sentience comes in. So intelligence is not sentience. Now, this part, I think you guys are practicing Hindus, I assume most of you. So what is Hinduism? Because this talk for a more general audience, but I'll still go over it. Hinduism is quite a special religion from the perspective of Western religions. If somebody is more exposed, grew up in the West, a lot of people they're more exposed to Abrahamic religions, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. When they try to study Hinduism, it's very difficult to understand. There are misconceptions, but there are core ideas in Hinduism that can improve their misunderstanding. So some of the key ideas are Dharma, Karma, Samsara, Moksha, Atman, and Brahman. So Atman we have already talked about. Brahman is the ultimate universal reality of cosmic spirit, and sometimes it can be translated to God, right, from an Abrahamic perspective. Some authors say Brahman is God. So there's no single founder or holy book. So I guess you are computer science students coming from computer science background, so you know about the open source software philosophy, right? And for example, our Linux operating systems, the Android phones, the Android software in your phones, they are all from the open source software, where you have decades of software development from different thousands of people all around the world. Right? So Hinduism, there's like, when you look at Abrahamic religions, you have a holy book, it's a revealed book, right? And it's a revealed book, and you have said this is the word of God, and there's one. Sometimes there could be several authors who are writing the word of God, and it's a one book. But in Hinduism, you have the 4 Veds. You have somewhat 18 Puranas. You have coming from Fiji in Australia, a lot of people, when you say that Gita, they say, okay, Bhagavad, okay, that is right. But there is more than a dozen types of Gita. We have Bhagavad Gita, we have Astavakra Gita, Ripu Gita, Ganesh Gita. So we have all those. Some of them are not well translated, or they're not really prominent, but they are there. We have Brahma Sutra. So there's a whole library of texts, right? And then the Hindu gods that we have, our temples here, is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, and goddesses. We have the whole philosophy of Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha and Prakriti means Purusha refers to consciousness. The male gods are representing consciousness. The female gods are representing Prakriti, right? So you have Durga Mata, Shri Mata, Saraswati Mata, and they're representing the various energies and forces of the planet to make life so existent. So for a Westerner, when they ask me to explain about Hinduism, I just say, have you seen? Usually, I hang around computer science people, so most of them have seen usually the movie The Matrix. So The Matrix It's an interesting movie. If you haven't seen, try to see that movie, The Matrix. So the movie very well shows how software systems in an operating system is personified. So you have all those characters in the movie. Software systems are personified. People are connected to software systems. They have an avatar type of identity, and so on. So the same with the way the Hindu gods have been portrayed in our temples and in our songs, poems, and so on. They are more of the philosopher and artist's perception about certain elements of the universe, right? So if somebody says Hindu gods is part of Hindu mythology, that is a complete nonsense. Because the term mythology means something that is not really existed, something made up. So it's a wrong term to use. The exact term should be Hindu theology. Theology, you need to get the same level of respect as in other religions to the Hindu gods. The other thing is, as Hindus, you guys there's a lot of change. You guys will be traveling overseas, all around the world, and people are going to ask you about your religion. So it's good to know about the basics and how you can translate the basics, because they are going to ask very basic things. Why do we have so many gods? Right? Like, why do we have two hands? Why do we have two legs? We only had one leg to walk around, right? So the so many gods are serving different purposes of the universe, right? So the more English term for God is deity, expressing Devata, and there's different nature, respect, and roles. And the supreme God or Brahman is the ultimate reality, which we cannot experience with our sensory perceptions. And the core Hindu text, what are the core Hindu texts? I've already mentioned this. But the thing is, the Vedas, Upanishads, and the Mahabharata, they are seen as revealed, Shruti, Simriti, remembered texts. But the definitions are, a lot of these definitions, some of it translations are done by Western philosophers and academics in the 18th and 19th century. So I think the reason why it is said remembered, for example, the Bhagavad Gita is a poem, right? It's a song. So you do not need a book because you can remember it, you can sing it, right? So it was sung for thousands of years before being written down. Same issue is the Ramayana. So the Puranas are the texts which are written more recently after the Bhagavad Gita and the Ramayana, more to bring in the core philosophy, understanding the philosophy of the Upanishads and the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita, and explain it with examples. So that's why the Puranas are there. So this is an example of a manuscript, and I'm sure most of you have seen that. So what is Indian philosophy and Hindu philosophy? So Indian philosophy is basically the philosophy of the land that has been developed here for more than 5,000 years, right? And it has these two big branches. One is the Orthodox and Astika and Nastika, right? So Astika essentially, one comes from the term asta. It's more of acceptance, right, of the Vedic authority, the Vedic text. And so Hindu philosophy is more the philosophy that is coming from this. And the examples of Hindu philosophy from Astika is Vedanta, Sāmkhya, Yoga, Nyāya, and so on. So if you look at the university system in the School of Computer Science, what we are doing? Oh, we're looking at logic and methods of valid knowledge. and generally in the Faculty of Sciences. And Vedanta would be more in the School of Philosophy, or Faculty of Philosophy, technically. So you can see Indian philosophy, and there are all these links from Vedanta to Buddhism, the Buddhist texts. Some of the yoga aspects will be there. In Jainism and Buddhism, it is known that Lord Buddha was inspired by Lord Buddha. So, and then we have Charvak and Ajivika. So these are materialistic and rationalist aspects, valid knowledge. So what we have current as modern science would be Charvaka and Nyāya. These two would be more of what we have promoting in the universities. But the interesting part is that even the Charvak followers and also the Buddhists and the Jain, they all believe that the universe was created by some sort of authority, a super intelligence, right? They all believe that there is Brahman. The Charvaks believed in Brahman, they believed in selfless service and so on, right? They were part of a community. They were just like questioning the Vedas. They said, like, we are not going to accept the Vedas. We are going to accept certain parts of it. So, as a student inquiring, you may be a Charvak because you may not be, as a science student of science, you can question the Vedas. But I think, from my understanding, I could be wrong. I think in this part of the world, what we have now is atheism. So, Nastika is not atheism. Atheism means that you do not believe in God, you do not believe the universe was created by a superpower, super intelligence, and so on. You say, no, all of a sudden things just appeared, so I don't believe in religion, God. That's what atheism is, right? Whereas Nastika is not really translated atheism. It's a loose translation. So usually we say somebody is an atheist, is a Nastic. That's not true. Okay? So think about it. So now we are going to look at some of the schools. So we have Nyāya has Praman and symbolic AI. These are the Nyāya epistemology is perception, inference, comparison, verbal testimony. And it has parallels in AI because in AI we have symbolic AI and their logic programming languages such as Prolog, and we have Lisp. If you have done a computer languages course, you'll go through those. And they were seen as programming languages for AI. And then we, in the AI parallel, we have explainable AI now, which is getting prominent. We want to know why LLM or the deep learning model has come to a particular prediction, right? So it can there be an if and or else rules extracted from these, some visualization to it. We want explainable decision-making processes, right? Because when you go to a doctor, the doctor will say, okay, if somebody is sick, okay, it's about time that you should have a heart surgery because IBC does not seem to be right. These features, your weight, blood type, this and that. And this track record shows that these problems are there persistent, and I would like to recommend. So the doctor has explained. If there's an AI model and it just says go and have a heart surgery without giving any explanation, then how will people believe them? So, and it's a black box model. Okay. Anybody has any questions so far? Coming to your mind? It is coming there, but you just don't want to ask, right? I will wait for a bit and go to the end of the talk. I will expect some questions. So there was a paper in 1985 that praised the Sanskrit language as the language that is the best for developing artificial intelligence model. So this by Briggs. So if you Google search Sanskrit and AI, you will come across this 1985 paper. And the reason it is because it's based on the Sanskrit has a formal grammar system, and Professor Vaiśesika is a Sanskrit expert, so it's not here, but he would tell you more details about Panini and the grammar system. And it is a very precise language. So in English, you have a problem. Firstly, you have the spelling is a mess. What's written and what's pronounced are different. And then there are a lot of double meanings. So it's hard. It was very hard for AI to really understand English, and that's why we have large language models. Whereas now Sanskrit is a more precise language. Right? The other thing about the beautiful thing about Sanskrit, I think you may have. I'm not sure if you are aware. There is a lot of debates about South languages and the North languages, and Sanskrit versus ancient Tamil and Telugu. And who were writing the first Hindus, Aryan versus Dravidian, all those debates are in India, a lot of divisions are there. But the main thing here is that some of the prominent philosophers and sages in South India, whose mother tongue were Tamil, Telugu, and so on, they were writing texts in Sanskrit. Because Sanskrit was the knowledge of academia and the knowledge of Hindu academia and Hindu philosophy, right? So Sanskrit was not, I believe that Sanskrit was not really a spoken language even in ancient India. It was more of an academic language. Just as we have English now, in a lot of places, if you come to UNSW, we have 90% of the students are probably international students. We all study in English, we write exams, but we all go home, they all go home, they are really speaking in Chinese and so on. So yoga, the mechanics of machine learning. So the yoga model of the mind, that there's a chit, the mind field, is conditioned by samskaras or the experiences, right? So we have, when we think of yoga, we need to know that in yoga philosophy, what is yoga? Yoga basically means union of the self with the super self, right? The Atman with the Brahman, the union, right? And how does that union happen? It's a while loop, right? It's a while loop with one condition, right? Is this guy, has he learned all about what he should learn about in life, right? So there's a one condition to exit the while loop. And that while loop condition is also in neural networks, right? You need to train a machine learning model to help learn and classifies according to, otherwise you keep on training. So in the case of yoga, what we have is the yogic traditions are there, where you do certain sadhanas, meditation, traditions, and it is believed that those you carry on to the future lives, right? And you refine yourselves. So another thing about yoga is in machine learning, we do have the concept of transference. Right? So you have a large language model, such as a BERT-based model. You can give it some data set and it refines in that BERT-based model. So it has knowledge that is from the Wikipedia corpus and so on. It's already trained. You do not train the LLM, but it is already trained. If you train, it will cost a lot of money. It takes a lot of computation. But you get the pre-trained weights and then you refine it on a smaller data set. So you can think of the pre-trained weights being refined on a data set as a life, current life. When you go into another data set, it could be another life, you know. So similarly, we are getting a lot of knowledge from our previous lives and moving on. The Maya and the simulation hypothesis. So this is about 20, bit more than 20 years, but the movie The Matrix that came about 96 or 97, right? And in there it shows software systems and people are plugged into glue. And in the movie The Matrix, so now you see that Actually, I haven't really noticed this in India, but it's quite evident in Australia. People are just glued to their phones, right? They're just glued to their phones in the trains, in the buses, and so on. So in the movie The Matrix, it's like people are there's the artificial world, right? So it's a future, and people are babies are born and robots raise these children, right? And they do not physically go outside. They are just in a shell, and they are the food. They're getting food and they're getting the drink, and all the tubes are connected to their body. So they're just sleeping. But people grow from a kid, a baby to a grown adult. They are just sleeping and they are all connected to the network, right? So it's like they believe in the first the network is connected to their brain, so it gives them a simulation of the world, right? And they believe that that world is real. They do not know that they are part of the matrix, so that's why it's called the matrix. So coming out from that world, there's a process, and there's a group of rebels. They have this process where they rescue people, grown-ups, from the shell, and then they say, okay, that was not the real world system, right? And in the real world, it's like thousands of years ahead in the future. There's no atmosphere on the earth. It's really destroyed. People are all staying inside, underground, so on. So that is the matrix. That's why it's the simulation is there, and that was not real. So that's a simulation hypothesis came from. It is around that bunch of thoughts that the world there that we have currently, it may be some future generations creating a huge matrix type of thing, and everything we see around is not really real, right? So that's the simulation hypothesis, and that is also in Advaita Vedanta, Maya and Brahman, right? That it is saying that what we call it real. So far, I have been saying things real, right? We are understanding that this is a real experience. But from a Advaita Vedanta perspective, all these studies around it means Maya, right? Maya basically means that the existence around it will change, right? And nothing is real. And what I perceive, it is not exactly what it is, right? So that's what Maya is. And there's avidya and jiva, false identification with empirical self. Because the thing is like, in other example of Maya is like people sometimes some people are very rich, they're born rich, and all their life they have lived in luxury. And all of a sudden the company becomes bankrupt. There's something. You have the same jiva, but the next day a rich person will be sleeping in a very poor person's house. Right? So the rich will be thinking like, oh, what happened? So that's also an example of Maya, because you may be so much attached to that self of identification. So what we get from the outside world, what we have even gained so far, a lot of this is karma from our past life and karma from current life. So some people say, Rohit, at home and even in the university, people call me Rohit. Rohit, you achieved so much in a short time. You're going all around the world, this and that. And coming to UNSW, which is a big university, then I don't really see that as a sense of achievement, as some people would, because I know that a lot of things I have done to come here is not really that hard work. If some of my friends that I knew worked harder than me, but they couldn't really succeed on this level. And the thing is, because I was born with certain gifts and qualities, so I cannot be boastful about it. So that's the whole thing of Maya and Avidya. Sometimes people become boastful about their achievements as well, or achievements of their children or people they know, right? Very boastful. But this is all Avidya. So four schools of consciousness research in the Hindu philosophy: Advaita Vedanta and Samkhya, Yogacara, and Kashmir Shaivism. So this is the Advaita is the substrate, Samkhya the partition, the stream, and Kashmir Shaivism the mirror. So these are relating to that whole aspect of the Hindu view of the universe, the Purusha and Prakriti. So Purush is consciousness, Prakriti is meta, nature, the physical world. Them coming together, then we have life, right? We have life as we have now. Purush and Prakriti coming there. The hardware and the software, right? We switch off the computer, there's no software work, right? That's when somebody dies, there's just the body, right? So, coming towards the end slowly, another 10 minutes. So, Sakshi and Atman in Vedanta, we have the Atman is the true self, the Sakshi, the true self is within, but there's an aspect of something that witnesses the world, that the body mind issue is there, where how much of the us is the body and how much of consciousness is the mind. And we have the reason we have the body mind here is because the mind body problem is a big problem in philosophy, in Western philosophy, right? Because there have been debates about are you the body or you the mind, meaning that is the mind that we have, the software within us, is it coming from the body, the brain? So if the brain dies, will the mind exist? So that's the mind body problem. And Western philosophers always argue, some even now, there's more academic consensus that human beings do not have a spirit. Or our mind is the university system is very materialistic. They kind of say that neuroscience can fix things, but there is a things are branching out. That's why we have psychology. Psychology is a field which does not really rely hardly on science. Says it's in between arts and science, right? Whereas in Hindu philosophy or generally Indian philosophy, the mind and body have been always seen as self. Because the dualism in Hindu philosophy is not the body-mind problem, but the dualism, the debates have been, or the schools have changed, such as Advaita and Dvaita Vedanta, where Advaita Vedanta is that the Atman and Brahman are the same. Dvaita is that they are different. So that's the duality in Hindu philosophy. So there's a lot of things here, and this is more of a summary of a lot of work to come. So Atman versus Sakshi. Atman is the ultimate self, and Sakshi is the witness in consciousness. Atman is identified with Brahman, non-dual reality, beyond all empirical attributes and mental states, ontological reality. It cannot be engineered. Where Sakshi is ever-present awareness, observing thoughts and perceptions, does not itself undergo modification, right? What is witnessing the world, since we are a kid to grown up, it does not modify. Methodological and phenomenological facilitates introspective inquiry. So with Sakshi, we have metacognition. We think about our actions, right? So this is the Hindu architecture of the mind. We have Manas, Buddhi, Chit, Ahimsa. So whereas in the Hindu architecture of the mind, the different components of the mind are distinct, and we know that they are interchangeable. They are not interchangeably used. Whereas in the Western definition of the mind, it is more simplified. So this definition of the mind is going to be very useful in developing future artificial intelligence systems that have attributes of consciousness. So in future systems, you have indriyas, manas, chitta, ahamkara, buddhi. So sensory input, output, attention, coordination, memory, impression, self-identity, and reasoning, right? And in the AI analogy, we have already things that I've explained earlier: computer vision, speech recognition, and so on. So manas, the coordinating mind, interface between sensory organs and cognition. So we already have operating system that has an interface between the mouse, keyboard, and it gives an output, right? So we can always compare the mind to an operating system. And there's dynamic processor oriented real time, and storehouse of impressions. And what we can say is we have the memory in the computer memory, then we have the hard disk, right? There are some things in the hard disk that you will never access. And what we have in our hard disk is more cosmological. We can say that there are lives that we have lived beyond this from the previous, but we never access things in those lives. But similar to, we may not really know what they were, but we do have some knowledge, features, and attributes from them, right? And that is similar to how in neural networks, you do not know what the weights actually mean, but they do have features that help in the learning process, in the case of transfer learning, for example. So the other analogy that we can see is cloud computing and Hindu metaphysics. And again, this is the same issue where we have reincarnation. Hindu philosophy is all about believes in reincarnation. And when some person is dead, then moves on to another life. So in that concept, you can think of cloud computing. If you have these computers in the universities, or they're all in the cloud, and you have your computer profile needs, you may have a folder with your files. You can log in into other computers, right? If this lab is not there, you may log into another lab, right? But you still have access to your file names, images, whatever you save. So your profile is there. Similar in the whole in the metaphysics, we have the case of reincarnation. When you take a human being takes another body, then there are things that are already there, the features, and there are new things that they learn. And I guess I have already explained this state. So the other thing is there's the optimization analogy of reincarnation, right? When do you stop reincarnating? So there's a while loop, but there's a condition, and that is moksha, global optimum. And the key difference so we have a Hindu doctrine and transfer learning and AI systems lack an intrinsic unified subjectivity or Atman anchoring these transitions. So there's something that is carrying the impressions of the past. That's the Atman, right? And that Atman remains the same, but it keeps on carrying new impressions and refines them in different life forms. But we cannot really think about AI, how that will be. So, Atman and Sakshi with relevance to AI consciousness. So we have Atman, Atman self, Sakshi, the witness aspect. That's the Vedantic foundation. AI today, we have large language models, chips that are used to train large language models, the hardware. And what is missing is there's no Sakshi like witnessing aspect in large language models that witnesses, so this component that really gets things, and that makes it difficult sometimes for it to decide or question, create content that is ethical or unethical. So the ethics aspect is missing in large language models. And towards conscious AI, we incorporate Sakshi functions we are looking to from a machine consciousness perspective that we may be able to improve these large language models, and they would be having with clarifications that they could help in developing better self model architectures, global integrations, and the two things that are very important. Cultivate meta awareness, right? A lot of people who end up in prison, for example, it's very, the bad guys, when they do their actions and they do not really accept where they went wrong, right? They will talk to people and they will keep on defending their actions because there's no meta awareness, right? And in the current AI system, there's no meta awareness at all, so the AI doesn't really define it. So that's why without meta awareness, without introspect, this ethics and dharma alignment cannot happen in AI system. So we need to develop AI in such a way that we have an integrated system where we have such things. So possible directions is, as I've already discussed, we need to probably develop software systems that have meta awareness. And bring in the concept of dharma, ahimsa, karma, and nyaya. Ahimsa, the non-violence aspects, need to come into simulated systems, AI agents, humanoid robots in the future, so that when they are in the workforce or at home, they do not harm people. So going towards the end, the key parallels: Sāmkhya, Antakarna, Yoga Samskara, the iterative learning through experiences. Nyāya, Pramana comes into the logic, rigorous inference and logic, knowledge validations. And finally, the Maya is meditative constructed reality, parallels AI simulation hypothesis. So the broader implications: we need to reframe AI consciousness debates, right? We need to talk about consciousness when developing AI system. We need precautionary ethics, as I said earlier. Interdisciplinary research, Hindu philosophy, but could be also other philosophical systems apart from Hindu philosophy, Buddhist philosophy, their definition of consciousness, ethics, of Christian philosophy, their definition of ethics and consciousness, and epistemological contribution. Ancient theories of mind and modern computational systems can offer a holistic, adaptive, and ethically grounding paradigm. So, in conclusion, Hindu philosophy provides a comprehensive, millennia-old framework for understanding mind, cognition, and it is consistent inside across schools, different Hindu schools, to understand cognitive processes. And there's a critical distinction that computation is not consciousness. Ethical principles such as dharma, ahimsa, and karma can be valuable guidelines. And the future, I've already mentioned that we can integrate these frameworks into new software systems. So this is all for today. Just want to say that Hindu philosophy, in the case of Hindu philosophy, intelligence is not awareness. Buddhi is not. Okay. So thank you very much. So longer version of this paper is in my Google Scholar profile, also available through ResearchGate. You can read the paper, and I will share that. Now opening for questions, comments. Yes. Yes. Yeah. What does that mean? Qualia is just the Western definition, Western term, something loosely defining that Atman. Yes, self. So you will see like translations of the Bhagavad Gita. In places of Atman, it will say self with a capital S. So it is thing that is inside Atman, the what is within us and experiencing the world around us, right? The witness property of consciousness, which is the hard problem of consciousness, as I said earlier. Yeah. Yes, that's qualia. So you can call it qualia, you can call it self, or from a Hindu perspective, Atman. Thanks. Yes. Yes.
So when you tell about the term Purush and Prakriti, so in the end, how can we relate it?
Purush and Prakriti. So from Prakriti, from the AI perspective, is more hardware, and maybe the lower hardware processes, such as in programming languages you have a bottom assembly language, right? So you could see those processes for Purush or consciousness to exist, software to exist. It's not from the hardware to the software, right? So Purush is an emergent property of hardware from a AI perspective, but from a Hindu philosophy perspective, it is the Purush that created Prakriti. It is the consciousness that gave rise to matter, not the other way around. So that's the clear distinction. But there is a relationship, right? It is belief. So that's where the theology comes. In some things, in philosophy, in reasoning, not everything can be defined with facts. Some things you need to reason. You have symbolic reason to have an inference, right? So some things, all the religions and philosophical systems, they have certain founding attributes, definitions. So in Hindu philosophy, some of the founding attributes, say karma, karma, and so on. But there are some certain belief systems that gave rise to the philosophy. So people don't want to debate too much about, such as one is that you, as a Hindu, you accept that what the sages wrote in the Hindu text, that Purush, consciousness, gave rise to meta. So that's a truth that we believe in, right? Those belief systems has led to the foundations of Hindu philosophy that we practice to improve our lives. Yes.
What kind of job roles we can pursue by integrating this philosophy?
In terms of job, I think this is going to be at the moment. There's philosophers are usually job in some way. so very controversial. But generally these days, arts and humanities, philosophy, these areas, it's hard to get jobs, right? That's not right. And even in academia, we have, especially in Australia, we have philosophy departments, humanities, closing down, right? But now with the how much of bad impact again giving to the society, such as addiction, ethical issues, dilemma. People are conversing with reports during depression, and some people committed suicide as well, right? So this knowledge of philosophy, you could be saying that, okay, because I am studying the philosophy and the ethics and also know AI, I could be in the forefront in designing new large language models that have ethical, underpinning, something like that. So this area is not going to be really keeping you jobless or something. I was just kidding. But the thing is, it's good to first establish your foundations and then do something that makes you really distinct, right? Like for me, for example, there's so many professors of AI in the world, right? How many of them are looking at AI and ethics? How many of them are looking at AI and consciousness, AI and politics, right? Then that becomes small. So it's like you need to define your career, your pathway where you are more special and other people cannot fulfill the role. So you should be aware of what are the problems in the society now and how are you going to solve those problems? What are you going to do to address those problems? So the knowledge of philosophy, Hindu philosophy, Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads, these knowledge can help you to, and there will be times maybe you will know all of this, you will be an AI graduate compared to somebody who is an AI graduate who is not having this knowledge about the Hindu philosophy, the Bhagavad Gita, and so on. And then both of you are struggling with job, and because that person doesn't know, there's a higher chance of that person to get depressed in life. Whereas you will have a set of knowledge that makes you understand your journey, why you are doing it, what you are doing it, and then it gives you more patience, right? It gives you more patience to keep on striving. So this is it's an add-on tool, right? Add-on tool that will make you very successful in life. So I would request you to spend some time beyond your classroom. You need to spend time beyond your classroom. I got into Hindu philosophy as a PhD student out of India during my master's at early PhD. And I studied Hindu texts, philosophy, Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads, Buddhist texts, so on, a lot of those. During my PhD,